How have you been liking the exhibit so far? Which exhibit is your favorite? That's lovely to hear. Also, I'm really glad that you liked the exhibit. It was definitely one of the nicer ones in here. Myself? I've been loving this whole time so far. Getting to see all the exhibition texts and just seeing the way that the museum wants to showcase everything. It's quite fascinating. I just love history museums. But I'll admit, science museums are cool too. We should go to a science one next time. Though, I would love to see all the artifacts and documents they don't show to the public. You know, once one of my professors was talking about the lewd things they don't showcase at the British Museum. Well, the British Museum has so many artifacts they don't show. Gives more reason to hate the British Museum. What? The British Museum just hoards all of the artifacts from how many other countries, deeming them to be unfit as their museums are not sophisticated enough. This caused other countries to up their game in terms of being able to preserve the artifacts they do have, becoming good museums in their own right. Then, a year or 2 years ago, I can't quite remember, it turns out the British Museum is quite horrible in terms of the way that they've been cataloging their documents, artifacts, and so on. And this was found out because how many of said items that are supposed to be safe in the British Museum were found on eBay being sold. I believe up to 2,000 artifacts were found out to be missing from their collection. Just the hypocrisy of all of that, saying you're unfit to hold your own culture's own artifacts, then not even being competent enough to keep track of said items. Just 2,000 items is insane, cutie. Sorry for going on that tirade. It's just history, museums, and all of the like are something I very much love learning and am passionate about, if that spiel didn't make it apparent. What? You know, as a history major, I am 100% obligated to love anything that is related to the field. uh, it's just that museums are one of the best things to come from public history as a whole. I realize I should explain what public history is. The definition itself is not completely consistent depending on which organization or person you ask, but in its simplest terms, the name is a definition. History open to the public, and by that I mean the general public, like the people that are here in the museum. Just history that is not in an academic setting is the best way that I can put it. Made accessible for everyone. It's actually something I love so much because there is so much thought and intent behind everything. Just think of it, the little exhibit text museums put, the way that they have tours around the museums, the brochures, even just the way that they choose what they want to display. Don't even get me started on trying to be able to afford all of the costs to run a museum. Like in Vegas, all the museums tend to be a lot more expensive, which makes sense because it has more traffic with tourists that would be willing to pay those prices, especially when said museums are a lot more gimmicky. That's not inherently a bad thing, it's just very different compared to that of California, where their museums are a lot cheaper depending on where you're going, as those tend to be volunteer based or have more federal funding, if I remember correctly. There is so much that needs to be thought of when you make something for the public, especially when your goal is to have them learn something as complicated as history. What? You don't think that it is that complicated? I am so gonna kick your butt for that later. But it really is so much more than what people think it is. Most people tend to think of it as a straight line, going from point A to point B, of cause and effect. but in actuality, it is more like a big ball of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. Yeah, I did quote Doctor Who. Sorry, I thought the quote was perfect for this. And it does fit it to the T. Plus, David Tennant was a good doctor. But I think Capaldi will always be my favorite from his speeches and just the emotion he exudes. Anyway, I am getting sidetracked from my rant. Sorry if I'm being a bit boring to you. It's just, I don't really get the chance to talk about this much, and I will take advantage of any opportunity I get. Plus, this is a date at the museum, a history one at that. We have to discuss history in some capacity, right? History is just so complex with so many things going on at once. Think about when Star Wars first came out in theaters. I believe that France was still executing people by that of guillotine. Another example is that both MLK and Anne Frank were born in the same year. History is just full of times and things we don't think are related, yet they happen at the same time. Full of real people and experiences waiting for us to try to understand. The way that I think of history is that it's important for every single person to know. Now that I think about it, that's probably why I'm very much infatuated with public history. It's just, we can't ever move forward without knowing what came before, if that makes sense. The best example I have for it is to think about the person you are now, in this very moment. If you didn't go through all of the experiences you did when you're younger, we would never have this version of you. There are mistakes that you learned from, things that you cringed at and never did again, regrets that pushed you forward, and so much more that helped mold you into the lovely one that I'm having a date with right now. If we didn't learn from the past, how can we move forward? We'd be prone to making the same mistakes over and over again because we never learn from them. Plus, just analyzing history is so nice to do. You have to acknowledge the amount of bias that you have when reading it. You have to be able to understand a completely different time, set of standards, and culture. I remember doing a reading for class that discussed teaching history, saying that it should be interesting, which is very true, but to illustrate it as learning something so alien and so foreign, because it is. We will never be able to fully understand what the thought process was. We just have to make our best guesses with the pieces that we got. It just makes looking at everything so thought provoking, is the best way I can put it. It doesn't fully explain the way I look at it, but I think it has the gist of it. Sorry, again, I know I said I wanted to take advantage of the moment with my rant. I just didn't realize how much time it took up. You liked it? Really? That makes me happier than you know. Anyways, we should keep on going around the museum. I want to hear your thoughts on everything. Let's go.